We now have the stage set for Full Gear, though we do have one more episode of Dynamite to go until then, but we pretty much have the entire card set at this point. We know who Darby Allen will be facing. We know what the number one contenders match final is going to be. Plus, we also know the women's championship match. We know the tag team championship match. We obviously know the world championship match. So we pretty much know everything, and then there is one more match that we'll talk about that was added on this card as well. So should be a good one. So overall, what did you think of the show this week?
Well, I've said, I think, a few times in the past when we've done some of our previous review shows that I think that an average show for AEW Dynamite is a good show, right? It's an entertaining, it's, on the positive side of the spectrum. But I thought that this show actually went a little bit above and beyond that. And I would have said that this was an above average episode of Dynamite. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. It wasn't without, any lows, but I definitely think that overall I came away just more and more excited for the pay-per-view. And I honestly, if I have to be honest, I think that this is where AEW excels. In the build-up to a big pay-per-view, they make the matches feel important. And I usually think that, the 2, 3, maybe even 4 or 5 weeks, let's say the month before a pay-per-view, that's where I really think that Dynamite hits its stride pretty much every time.
Yeah, I think when they have a deadline looming on when they have to get stuff to the end point and get it all on the same day is when they do bring out the best. So it's kind of like they set the date. Okay, we need to be at this point at this time. So then the last 2, maybe 3 episodes, like you said, is when they really are like, oh crap, this is coming up and we got to get this taken care of. So I think it does. That sense of urgency ends up coming in, and they actually kind of pull out a lot of good stuff when they're kind of under the gun. And I just wish that they would stick with this would be like your average quality at this level, because we had a very good mix of character segments. It wasn't just match. We had plenty of stuff. We had some inset promos when people are coming out to the ring. We did have actually 2 of them that I can think of. We did have a lot of promos before and after matches. We had video packages hyping up other stuff. I think they did a really good job overall on just kind of getting everything in there. We had our kind of sports entertainment-y segment, I guess you will, with MJF and Chris Jericho with the town hall meeting. That was pretty entertaining. And then we had some solid matches out of Omega and Pentagon, plus the Orange Cassidy Cody match, and of course kicking off the night with the Wardlow Adam Page match. And 3 solid matches right there. The women's match was actually quite good this week as well.
Very good, actually.
Yeah, so we actually had some pretty good matches and some pretty good angles set up as well. So I am actually really looking forward to Full Gear this year. I think there's going to be some pretty good matches happening there.
Yes, sir. I totally agree.
All right, so let's just set this up here. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into That's Wrestling. If you are listening to this as a podcast, we do this show live over on YouTube, so follow the link to the channel for that in the show notes. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, all that good stuff, you can send those to Eric@that'swrestling.com. If you'd like this as a podcast, you can find it on all your favorite podcast apps or get the RSS feed from that'swrestling.com as well. That's Wrestling 1, the number 1 on Twitter. And I'm going to have Caleb work on that one because I suck at Twitter. What else do we have? We have a Discord server as well. Link is in the show notes and description. And tonight I have with me once again, Caleb Johnson. How's it going, man?
Very well, sir. I'm doing great. Like we talked about a little bit, I really enjoyed this week's episode of Dynamite. As you mentioned, also, I'm going to try to do a little bit of magic with the Twitter. So definitely make sure you guys are engaged with us there. That's Wrestling 1 on Twitter. So come and check it out. I'm going to try to put up some polls, maybe some predictions for Full Gear. And in other news, last week I noticed you had that very nice hat, so I dug through my hat box. I've got a collection of hats I've accumulated over the years, and I found one kind of similar, so we could be hat buddies. I know it actually doesn't match my hoodie at all, but
I have
I
many
decided
flat.
to wear it.
I have enough flat caps that the flat cap is in the logo of That's Wrestling. So,
That's right, it is.
and it's our graphics guy always tries to hide it somewhere or put it somewhere in the graphic. Usually he'll put it on one of the wrestlers if he can't, or sometimes he'll just throw it on top of the logo. But sometimes he puts it on wrestlers and it looks really funny. I think he put it on top of.
It's going to be a channel hallmark. I'll have to buy a couple more.
Yeah, I think he put it on Suzuki while he was giving somebody an armbar for one of the G1 reviews. All right, so let's get into it. We have AEW Dynamite October 28th, 2020. Again, they are still in Jacksonville, Florida at Daly's Place, and I'm sure they're going to be there for the foreseeable future. I have no idea when they're finally going to leave, but with everything how it's looking, we have like the highest new cases per day going on right now in the US. I don't think they're going to be leaving anytime soon. So we kick off the show and Dasha is with Wardlow and MJF, and she's of course asking asking Wardlow how he feels, you know, if he wins the tournament, he's going to have a shot at the AEW World Championship. And MJF, of course, cuts it off and cuts in and says that, well, if Wardlow becomes champion, that means he becomes champion because Wardlow is under contract to him. And Wardlow, his face said, "I'm having none of it," but he did said, "Yeah, you got it," and that, like completely disingenuously saying that, and MJF did not pick up on that. And then Sammy comes in. MJF says, "How you doing, little bud?" And Sammy says, "Cut the shit. I'm not your buddy. I'm not your friend. Tonight, I'm going to make sure you never join the inner circle." Wardlow wants to step in at this point, but MJF tells him to go stretch for his match. And MJF calls Sammy a little guy, and as you sent to me in a PM, that they're like the same height. Sammy's might be like a 1 inch shorter than MJF. He says, "Where's all this hostility coming from? I thought we were pals." And he said he was going to give him some advice, that last week attacking Matt Hardy was very nice, but I had a note for you on your promos. Don't. And then he's like, "Oh, what's the matter? What's the matter? The guy that looks like he sells Adderall to middle schoolers is upset. What are you going to do about it? Are you deaf?" And Sammy bites back and says that he's been thinking about all the things he's going to do about it. And MJF slowly backs away. I thought this was a good opening segment. I love how Dasha was, of course, asking Wardlow a question, and MJF felt the need to answer said question. MJF has been snubbing Sammy all the time anyways, so Sammy does have a legitimate gripe here, and I'm curious how this is all going to work out, which we later find out that there will be a match next week that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought this was a fun opening promo. Actually, a little unexpected, I thought. Just when, as soon as the theme ended for Dynamite, we were immediately thrown into this promo. I thought that was kind of a cool twist. I like that AEW tries to change things up a little bit. Not always, hey, here's a long opening promo or here's a match right away. Just they like to open the show a little bit differently all the time. I like that. So I thought this was a good opening promo. The Adderall line really had me laughing. For a while there, it looked like the Wardlow turn on MJF, which I think we all think or kind of have an idea that is in the works. It seemed like for a while they were going to pull the trigger, in my opinion, too soon. It felt like it was going to happen maybe a month or two, maybe even a few months ago. And they have let this be a slow burn. They just continually to tease it, but haven't pulled the trigger yet. I think that's the right call. And I think they're allowing Wardlow a little bit more time, more matches, really getting him to build up his stock before they have him, in my opinion, I think they're going to have him turn on MJF. In a stunning reversal of what always happens, which is MJF turning on everybody else. But I think Wardlow's going to turn on him. He'll be a monster babyface. We talked about that a little bit last week, I believe. So I think that's where they're going with it, and I like that they've held off on it. I thought it was a good opening promo, and I also think that they might use MJF to turn Sammy face at some point. So who knows where we're going with that?
Yeah, It's kind of weird. I wouldn't think that Sammy would be. Well, actually, it does make sense, because if this all plays out and eventually it's Jericho that turns babyface, it would make sense to bring Sammy with him as a babyface, and then keep the rest of the guys as heels, but led by MJF instead. And Wardlow comes too, so you could have Wardlow, Jericho, and Sammy kind of as a informal faction, if you will. Based on the ashes of what happens with Circle. I'm guessing that's going to collapse at some point in the next 6 months to a year.
Yep. Looking forward to where they go with that.
Yeah, and as far as starting out differently, they always do really good. And even if it is going to be an opening promo, it's like 2 minutes at the most. Like, their promos are never long. So that's one good thing. You don't have a 20-minute in-ring segment where nothing happens.
I've never seen that before. What are you talking about?
Right?
What are you talking about?
So right after that, it goes directly into Wardlow versus Hangman Page. I didn't look. Did Hangman have a Chiron this week?
Yes, he did. It said, 1 second, emotionally unavailable, Hangman Adam Page.
That's pretty funny.
I like that one.
So as soon as the bell ring, Page rushes in. It doesn't end up making any advantage for him, though. They go back and forth. Aubrey almost got legitimately squashed in the corner. Did you see the double reversal? And she's like, had no idea which way they were going. She barely got out of the way for that one.
I don't think she knew which of them was going to end up on the better end of that. So right. I thought she maybe thought they were going into the other corner. And I think he whipped Wardlow, and I saw her just get right out of there. But
I think she thought they were going to the ropes and not the corner. And it was a double reversal. So it was like a complete direction change twice.
Yep.
So I think that's what happened.
I wasn't sure if that was a shoot or a work, but I actually watching it again. And now that you mention it, yeah, I don't know if she knew it was coming at her.
Wardlow goes to the outside. Hangman tries a top rope cross body over the top, and Wardlow just catches him. Man, this guy is strong to be able to catch.
So cool.
235 pounds of a flying person, especially when they're dropping over the top rope. And right. It looked like Wardlow wanted to lawn dart Page into the post, but Page shimmies out the back and pushes Wardlow into the post, but Wardlow comes back with a driving spear and just drives Page through the barricade, smashing onto the concrete on the outside. Page barely makes the 10 count. Back in the ring, Wardlow stays in control for a decent amount of time. He hits a gut-wrench suplex for a 2 count. Page does the Suzuki armbar in the ropes, and of course he has to break it up before the 5 count. Wardlow misses an amazing looking swanton. That was just like smooth the whole way, and
so graceful.
Right.
They bill him 280 pounds, and he like floated through the air.
Right. It looked like way smoother than Jeff Hardy ever looks doing this move. Wardlow, of course, misses it, though, and then they go back to the outside. Hangman hits moonsault to the floor off the top rope, and Hangman gets a 1 count for a shooting star press, or a standing shooting star press in the middle. Goes for the buckshot lariat, but Wardlow takes him out. Wardlow ends up hitting an F10, and Hangman desperately rolls out of the ring, so he can't even make the cover. They end up fighting to the top rope, and Hangman hits a super overhead throw suplex, which Wardlow landed like 6 inches from the other turnbuckle across the ring. Page then hits a buckshot lariat, and Wardlow just drops to 1 knee, but Page comes in and hits a second one and picks up the victory. I thought this was a very solid match, very good opener, and made Wardlow look like a beast, even in defeat, because he took that buckshot and only dropped to a knee and stood up again, and he had to take a second one to get the victory. Really good work out of both these guys. Looking forward to it. I was wondering if Wardlow was going to get that choke pull down into the knee that he does off the top turnbuckle, but that's where Hangman turned it into the armbar in the ropes. I don't think I've ever seen Hangman do that move before.
Yeah, I hadn't either. That kind of caught me off guard. As soon as he did it, I was like, I had a little mini pop. I was watching it literally by myself, And when that happened, I was like, oh man, that's a great move, a great counter. Yeah, I think that this match, honestly, it wasn't the best match, quote unquote, star ratings wise. I wouldn't say it was the best match on the card, but it was my favorite match on the card. I thought that everything about this match, the context surrounding it, was perfect. Just little details like, for example, like you mentioned, Hangman transitioning into the over the rope armbar as a counter because he's studied his opponent, right? He sees this move, he figured out a way to get around it. That amazing. I mean, they called it a spear, but it was really just this insane bulldozer type where he picked him up by the gut and just slammed him through this barricade. It was like half spear, half pile driver through the barricade from Wardlow in the beginning there. I thought that was amazing. Now that we're here, right, and I've seen this match, I can totally understand because initially my prediction and my hope, in fact, was that Jungle Boy was going to win that preliminary match and go on to face Adam Page in a babyface match. But now that I see what they're doing with Wardlow, I think that it was the right decision to put him through and an incredible match. I think that this match was also just correctly timed. I was afraid they were going to go a little too long, as I think they sometimes, in my opinion, I think AEW starts to go a little long. They tend to go more long than short when maybe they shouldn't, and we'll talk about that later. With another match on the card. But I thought this was perfectly timed. The need for a second buckshot was perfect. Just put him down to one knee. He didn't even try to pin him or push him. He just said, okay, let's try that again. Tried it again, got him, got the pin. So everything about this match was really just well told. Great story, I thought. And I'm very happy that Hangman's in the finals.
Yeah, amazingly, this is one of the matches that it could have used a couple more minutes. I think it would have been fine, but yeah, as far as timing goes, I think this one went slightly short, but that's just me. I think they had a little bit more to tell, but I'm sure Wardlow is going to be moving up the card as time goes on anyway, so we're probably going to see this match in the years to come, assuming both of these guys are with the company for at least the next 2 to 5 years anyways, so yeah. We'll see how that goes. I think
in that time span they'll definitely get a rematch for sure. Yep. And if I could quickly also address the opening promo, Sammy slouches just a little bit. If you notice, he kind of stands like this. If he stood up, I think he's the same height as MJF. Like, I bet they're about the same height. And he kept calling him little guy, and that's just perfect for the MJF character, obviously. I say character, but I mean, this guy's never out of character. So I just thought it was so funny. He kept calling him little guy. That made me laugh.
Yeah. According to Wiki, height wise, MJF is 1 inch taller.
Yeah, I believe it.
So yeah, good stuff. They run down the card for tonight, and we find out that Serena Deeb is the new NWA champion. I did not know that. There was a pay-per-view the previous night. I think it was UWN, and NWA had some champions on their shows. So that is where kind of their champions have been hanging out. So it looks like Serena Deeb had picked up the title over Thunder Rosa. There was speculation that Thunder Rosa was planning on going to WWE, but it appears that she is actually under contract with NWA through 2021. So over a year to go on her contract still. So I think this was just a regular title change and didn't have anything to do with her leaving or anything like that. So interesting that she dropped the belt to Serena Deeb, but that's, I guess, how it goes sometimes. And look at that. Serena Deeb leaves WWE and she's the NWA champion within 6 months.
Absolutely. I mean, she is, and I don't want to try to draw comparisons, or I don't want to come under fire for saying, oh, comparing her to any male wrestler. She is who she is on her own. But it did kind of remind me of Cody when he left WWE. He found a lot of success in other promotions because I think people realized, a lot of other promotions said, hey, this is a guy who can be a top guy, right? Or at least maybe your second or your third guy. He can go to New Japan and be a part of the Bullet Club. Like, he he has some value. You know what I mean? So I think Serena Deeb has really come into her own, like knowing her value. Not that they didn't know her value in WWE, but I mean, she wasn't even on the card as a wrestler, right? She was a trainer and obviously wanted to do more. So I think she's branched out a bit and been allowed to, do more because she can. I mean, she's incredible in the ring. I thought the women's match on the card, which we'll get to, was wonderful. I thought she did a great job. And yeah, she totally deserves that. I'm glad that she's finding some championship success.
Next up, there was a Jon Moxley promo. This was filmed back in his hometown, back in Las Vegas, and in the gym that he trains with, which is Randy Couture's gym. He says that he spent the last months in AEW making the AEW World title the #1 prize in the sport. And up until now, it's been all business. But this time, this one's just for me. AEW is for athletes who put in the work, and Eddie Kingston doesn't belong. He's going to make Kingston say he quits, and says that the AEW champion has crushed skulls and egos, and tells Eddie to protect his neck.
Yeah, this was great. I mean, we kind of waxed eloquent on it last week, so I won't say much, but other than Kingston and Moxley are two of the best promos in the company. You know, they're doing these video packages with each other or against each other. I also thought that was amazing that Moxley can just sit on the floor of his gym and just be ready to go promo mode. I think sometimes, and again, not being in the business myself, I think that some people maybe, they got to get the gear on, they got to get into the zone, get to, Daly's place, for instance, get backstage, get ready to do this promo. It looked like he had just done a workout. He's sitting on the, gym floor, and he cuts this great promo. So, I mean, he is instant in and out. I think he's just a fantastic promo, and this made me, again, more excited for the match.
Butcher and Blade come out with Eddie Kingston for his match. The bunny is with them, and they actually explain that the bunny has come back after she maxed out all of QT's credit cards. So the story went about the way I thought it was going to, but I thought it was going to take like 6 weeks and not like 6 months.
Right. Can I ask you a quick question? Just this is a good pit stop.
Sure.
Do you feel that AEW should continue to try to close out somehow bad storylines? Or do you think that they do the right thing as they do now by kind of just calling it, maybe provide a little bit of context, like similar, I'm thinking of the Nightmare Collective with Brandy Rhodes. They just kind of drop that, right? I mean, should they allow something that's bad to play out? Or should, if they realize it's not getting ratings or that it's not what they envisioned it to be, just slice it out?
I say tie it up if you can quickly. Because then it doesn't leave it dangling. They did that with the Nightmare Collective, though I don't know if they did it on Dynamite.
I think it was on Dark.
Was it on Dark? Did you see her promo when she was at the therapist office?
Yeah.
I
saw it after the fact, but I don't believe that was on.
That definitely Dynamite. Was not on Dynamite. I know it was on the YouTube, but they at least put it somewhere, so it was closed out there. So that's how at least they closed that out, when she's in the therapist's office, and then it cuts to her and she's just wearing a regular fleece jacket, and it turns out the therapist she was talking to was just one of her stuffed animals.
Right.
So she's going crazy and just is like coming out of the crazy. So yeah, and I think here they wrap it up. They tell, the bunny maxed out all of QT's credit cards and ditched him. I thought that was the original storyline anyways, but I thought it was going to take 6 weeks and not 6 months.
Right.
Eddie cuts a promo before the match. Was this on TV?
Yes.
Okay. Eddie cuts a promo before the match and says, "How dare the world champion not be here? He's sick and tired of talking. He wants to fight." He then kicks the cameraman out of the ring because he had come into the ring.
A very nice touch. He said, "You're not trained to be here. Get out of here. You're not trained for this." I thought that was cool.
That was pretty funny. I'm curious if that was planned or if that was completely unscripted and like they had no idea that was going to happen. He says the world champion isn't here because he's a coward. Says he's taking on the Joker who ruined his night at Double or Nothing, or tried to steal a spotlight at Double or Nothing, Matt Seidel. I thought this was a good promo, and it is actually true. Jon Moxley hasn't been there the past 2 weeks. I'm curious if that stems out of him being at the collective shows where there was a few people who had COVID. So I think he might have just been taking the 2 weeks to quarantine, and that's why he wasn't there last week anyways. And then this week was taped last week, so he wouldn't have been there. So he probably was out of abundance of caution staying away just because of that. And it didn't really matter. He sent in video packages for both nights, so it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably why. Just being part of Bloodsport a few weeks ago, I think he's just, and he's probably in my, I don't have any inside knowledge, but I would doubt that he's probably tested positive. He's probably just tested negative, wants to take precautions. And I think that's the right thing to do for him. And his promos are great, so I don't mind his absence.
Yes.
But he will be confirmed in the ring with Eddie Kingston next week, face to face.
Yep. And that makes sense because he's probably just going to stay there until Full Gear a couple days. Then we go into Eddie Kingston versus Matt Seidel. They actually start off with a bit of submission wrestling, a little bit of mat work to start off. I didn't really expect that out of either of them, but hey. Then they go back and forth with some strikes and power moves. Kingston holds control throughout the commercial. Seidel makes a very short comeback, but Kingston hits the back fist and then uses the bulldog choke, which Jon Moxley uses to get the tap out, but he will not let go after the bell. He continues holding it, and the Butcher and Blade keep the ref away, and the Bunny runs in with a mic, and they make Matt Seidel say "I quit" like he's going to for Jon Moxley, and he apologizes to Jon Moxley like Matt Seidel is Jon Moxley, some sort of surrogate for him or avatar. I thought this was I thought that was a nice little touch of some little mental break that Kingston might be having, a little disassociation with what's going on. I thought that was a very nice little touch right there, even if it doesn't actually play out into anything later on. There's just a nice little topping right there.
Totally. So this match, not necessarily for the fault of the guys in the ring, but this match was probably one of my least favorite. I felt it was too long. I understand you want to give Matt Seidel a good showing. He's this big signing. He's already 4-1 based on Dynamite and just a few weeks worth of work. So obviously he's got a pretty good record going for him. Not a ton of matches, but he's been putting in the work. I thought this should have been shorter. If Kingston's really going to be this dominant challenger for Moxley, I thought it went too long. I think that Matt Seidel got a little too much in this match. That was just, again, my opinion. He had a really nice diving Meteora off the top. Again, looked good, but I was just really wish that this had not gone through a commercial break and that spinning back fist would have happened 5 minutes earlier. That's just my opinion. But at that moment, at the end, I was like, all right, it went a little long. The post-match right there made this for me. It totally brought it back up because they made him say "I quit," and as he had him in the bulldog choke, he said, "Say it, Mox." Like he's talking to him like he was Jon Moxley. Like he said, "Say it, Mox. Say you quit." And he got to hear Moxley, because in my prediction is that he will not hear Moxley say "I quit" at Full Gear, but he got to hear it. You know what I mean? He got him in that bulldog choke, let him go, and he kept saying, "I'm sorry, Mox," looking right at Seidel. And just like you said, there was that little hint that he's starting to disassociate from reality. He's just getting a little too passionate about this and a little too involved. He's getting a little mental break. And I thought that was so cool, such a neat touch. It took what was an all right idea and brought it way back up for me. So I really like that.
Yeah, I think it might have been a little better if they did a more of a squash with somebody else instead of just squashing Matt Seidel, just either squashing some. The problem being, I would have actually put one of the few friends Jon Moxley has in here, but you can't do it to either of them because Darby Allen is going to be facing the TNT champion at Full Gear, and Will Hobbs, you're not going to want to have Kingston squash him. So the two friends that Moxley has, that would have been the best if Darby Allen was not going for the TNT title at Full Gear. I think that would have been even better if Kingston did that to Darby Allen. But I mean, Darby Allen wouldn't have quit, so that wouldn't have made a ton of sense either. But
yeah, exactly. Darby doesn't quit. You had to have someone who would say the words "I quit," and that would not be Darby. It certainly wouldn't or shouldn't be Will Hobbs. So I think you're 100% right. And as I say that, I'm glad they're giving Matt Seidel like some time. Like in the end, I'm actually glad that he got some offense on the number one contender. But it just, for me, for the type of match they're trying to build to, I felt like it should have been quicker. But you're right, it shouldn't have been Matt Seidel in my opinion.
Next up, we have a promo segment, I guess. Excalibur is with the Bucks and FTR is remote. Excalibur asks Matt about his ankle that was Pillmanized by FTR the previous week. Says that he's fine. You can see Nick disagreeing with that. He's like, you can't even walk to play with your kids. He's like, doesn't matter. You're going to carry me to the ring and I will fight on one foot if I have to. Excalibur asks FTR, why would you put this match in jeopardy? It's a dream match everybody wants to see. Dax basically says, who gives a crap about what the internet fans want? Who cares if it's a dream match? It doesn't matter. The championship is what's most important to them and keeping those championships. So he doesn't care about that. Excalibur says that he's known the Young Bucks for many years. Matt cuts in and says, yeah, that's why you have a job here. And Matt says that they might regret some of the stuff that they've done, or that wasn't the exact words. He's not proud of what they have done, but he doesn't regret what they've done lately. Matt says that something clicked in them, that the old Bucks are back, and these pricks started affecting our livelihood. And Excalibur continues to press them a little bit more. So Cash decides that, okay, apparently you guys don't want to talk to the champions, so we're obviously not needed here. So they walk out of the interview, and then Matt says that they're self-made, they're poor kids growing up, and that if they lose at Full Gear, they will never challenge for the titles again. So they're pulling out this stipulation 1 year later for their match that Cody did for his match against Jericho at Full Gear last year. So interesting going back to this stip again in such a short time span. This is like a once every 5 year type of stip, not a use it once a year.
Cool. Glad we're on the same page about that. This whole segment for me was full of highs and lows all at once in a short, like 2 or 3 minute interview. There was a lot of highs, a lot of lows. First of all, Excalibur in like a t-shirt. What's wrong with him? That was stupid. He should have put on at least a button up or a sweater. He looked so silly, I thought, in just a t-shirt, interviewing the champions and, you know, the number one contenders in the Young Bucks. I just thought that was a little silly. But anyway, I really liked everything from FTR. Everything FTR did, getting up and walking out, I just thought that was cool. I really like them. My problems here are mostly with the Young Bucks. I think that there are all right promos, but I just didn't think that there was a lot of emotion here conveyed. I think back to the, Revolution match with them against Hangman and Kenny Omega, and some of the promos to lead up to that were fantastic, just full of vigor and emotion. You could really tell like that this story meant a lot to them, and there were a lot of dynamics at play there as well. This one just fell a bit flat for me. I think that Matt Jackson kind of, I don't know, not that he flubbed the promos, but he was just not conveying the same level of intensity that I thought really is represented here. Totally agree. This stipulation should not have come back out this soon, or I mean, I don't want to say ever, but like it just seems like it doesn't fit here, and is definitely not something that you want to have happen all the time. It makes the match a little bit more predictable, in my opinion. But the thing is also, like, I didn't understand the reasoning here, because Matt says, hey, we're poor kids. We come from nothing, right? Wouldn't that mean that you stop at nothing to win these championships? Like, if you lose, you will try again and again and again, and you will never stop and you will never rest until you hold what is the highest prize for tag teams in your company, right? And they said, we come from nothing, so if we lose, we'll never try again. I'm like, that sounds lazy. I didn't like this at all. I don't think that it's a good step. And when he said that, Excalibur said, wow. And I was like, where's the astonishment that the best tag team in the world is not going to challenge again ever, right? For the company that they are, not only talent in, but also executives in. And he just reacted like it meant nothing to him. So I kind of, this was a little down for me. I don't like them going back to the stip. I like the idea of a stipulation for sure, but it shouldn't be this one.
Yeah. Matt is a really hit or miss promo. Nick has never been a good promo at all anyways. And especially like in-ring promos, neither of them are very good. Especially when they're like constrained a little bit more here in AEW than they are in New Japan or were in ROH and stuff like that. They could go off the cuff a little bit more and not have an exact end goal in mind. Here they obviously had to stay within some bounds that were set up, and it did seem to be a little clunky in spots. Nick only said a few words because Matt is the better promo of the two of them, and you see him talk the most. It's kind of strange because Matt is always very entertaining and engaging on BTE, but for some reason on Dynamite or any other like actual wrestling show, he's not as engaging, which is kind of strange. I don't know if it's just some weird nerves that happen when it's like, oh, this is, for BTE, oh, this is us just goofing around, and here we actually have to convey something, or working with or for somebody else and not just ourselves. So we're like the pressure of having somebody else's expectations just causes him to kind of go in and out a little bit, I guess. But as far as how this setup is, one, it doesn't nail us down where the Young Bucks are sitting as far as babyface heel. The stuff that they've been doing is way out of character for a babyface, and it just does not work. And then, of course, using the stipulation kind of throws it down. I don't think there's any way that they're losing this match at Full Gear. It would make basically no sense to have two of your top acts not be able to go after the top title in your own company that you're part of.
Right. I actually got a little worried when they said this. The first thing that popped into my brain was maybe they're taking the criticism of AEW from, a couple years ago when this company was in talks and starting. A lot of people said, oh, they're just going to put the top talent or top titles on themselves. They're going to book themselves. They're going to go the way of, so many older performers who were, not only, to call back Cody's promo from when he announced, he said not only are they talent, they're also management. I think maybe they're taking that a little too seriously and incorporating it here because, sure, you don't want to book yourself all the time top of the card, but, you are some of the most recognizable people on this TV show. People knew who the Young Bucks were before AEW began, so, you have some star power, right? You've got to acknowledge that you're one of, not only one of the top teams talent-wise, but you're also the name recognition, so don't be afraid to put yourself there at least once or twice, right?
Yeah, considering that they are one of the best in the world, it would make sense that they would be in the top spot. And the problem is when the people who are booking themselves lost sight of where they were realistically on the card or realistically what their capabilities were. Whereas here you have Kenny Omega, Hangman Page, Hangman's not part of the management, but you have Cody and the Bucks. So you have four of the top guys outside of WWE and arguably New Japan. There might be Kenny Omega is probably at the top of the list anyways. So you're going to have to be at the top of the promotion that, yes, you might be management of, but that's not your fault, and that's not something to stray away from or be scared of. The problem is when you overstay your welcome, or if you're not as good as you think you are, where in this case, I think they might think they're not as good as they are in reality, or might not want to be perceived as being as such. So it's obviously going to be a very fine line for them to walk for many years now until they kind of start winding down their careers. All of these guys are now in their, I don't know how old the Bucks are. They're probably early 30s, but Omega, he's in his mid 30s now. Cody's in his mid 30s. So, we got guys that their careers are going to be coming near they're going to be wrapping up their regular in-ring work within the next 5 to 7 years, probably, is when they're going to start kind of slowing down and taking a back seat. But now you are in your prime. Kenny Omega, Cody, and the Bucks, they should be pushing as hard as they can, building this company on their backs for for the next 5 years, and then that's when they can let it go. But I think it makes sense that the first year that they did kind of put over more other talent to try to build up off what name recognition they did have coming in, and now it's kind of time for them to take the reins and pull it for the next 5 years and really build it. And then they can start dropping back off and let the talent that they have been working with and developing take over the spots.
Right. I 100% agree. I just took a second to look it up. Matt Jackson's 35. Nick Jackson's 31. He is the younger brother.
Who looks like the older brother.
Yes, exactly. That hairline. But I have to say, I mean, I think, my opinion is that they should team back up with Kenny Omega, in kayfabe here, that they should become the elite of old. And they really should take in my opinion, their rightful spot towards the top of the card, because they are the best, and you need to use that while you've got it. Because if you do nothing but put over people for the next 3 or 4 years, well, eventually you're going to be old, just like you said. So I think it's smart to try to capitalize on the momentum now, and don't be afraid. If you're 45 or 50 and you're going over, young guys, then now there's a problem. You know what I mean? It's the WWE Legends problem that they have, getting these guys back just to get some ratings or to get a cheap win over somebody who could have been higher up on the card. So, yeah, I totally agree with what you said. I think that now is the time for them to take it. Again, don't really love the stipulation, because that stipulation, in my mind, really makes them the babyface of the match, which I'm sure they'll work babyface, but they've been toying with his heel turn. So they just need to get back with Kenny Omega, go full heel, and take that for the next year or two.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end of the show. I actually had a couple notes that I made when watching this show, so we'll come back to that in a little bit. Next up, we have the Inner Circle Town Hall meeting, and it is moderated by Dasha and Tony Schiavone, though they didn't have a ton, but there was one very bright, shining Tony moment that was hilarious. We have Luchasaurus. He comes up to the microphone for the first question and says, "Since you don't have a master's degree like me," and he goes on asking about economics, "what do you see as your strengths to help increase the Inner Circle's earning potential?" This was given to MJF from Luchasaurus. MJF already has a prepared graph, and it is just a hilarious 45-degree angle line that goes up versus the pre-MJF money line, if you will, that just kind of slowly goes up and kind of the chops up and down a bit. So he's basically saying that, yep, he's prepared and he's going to bring all this money, though it doesn't really say how. Next up, we have Brit Baker. Rebel is with her, but again, Tony calls her Reba, which is hilarious now that he's calling her Reba. And Rebel is just smitten with Jericho and just complimenting how he looks, and Britt has to shove her out of the way of the microphone. And Britt asks, given MJF's track record with friends in AEW, how does Jericho trust MJF? Jericho says that MJF is not a dipshit like Cody, says that they'll knock his teeth down his throat if he crosses them, and MJF tells everybody to calm down and that they'll make a whole lot of green and a whole lot of gold if he's with the Inner Circle, so bringing in the money and titles. Then we have Peter Avalon. He's like, I'm just going to shoot my shot now. Can I join the Inner Circle? And the entire Inner Circle laughs at him. And Jericho's like, yeah, no, not a chance. And then we have the cameo of the night. We have from, where is it? Cody, South Carolina or North Carolina? Or?
I think it was Cody, Wyoming.
Cody, Wyoming. Yeah, it was Cody, Wyoming. Eric Bischoff is there. He says he has a 3-prong question. He says on January 20th, 1961, at JFK's inauguration, he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And he poses that to MJF. So what can you do for the Inner Circle? MJF says, oh, that's a powerful question, so I will give you a powerful one-word answer: friendship. And then Bischoff continues. He says that a lot of people consider you nearly a total package of a wrestler. What is it that you believe the inner circle can do for you? MJF says, I have to correct you there. I'm not nearly a total package. I am the total package. And says that he might have one dent in his armor, and that is his ability to be a team player. But once he joins the inner circle, or this, he said, this group of fine men, I will learn to be. And then finally, Bischoff says that he's worked with Mr. Jericho for many years, and most would agree with him that he's a bit of a prima donna. And Jericho gets mad and tries to respond, and this is where Tony cuts Jericho off and tells him to shut up. And then that Bischoff has the floor, and he will get his time. He says that MJF is also kind of a prima donna himself, and what is going to stop the two of them from just killing each other if MJF joins the inner circle? MJF, like the true politician that he is, deflects the question and says he's been getting all types of crap this whole time, people booing at him, and Jericho then is like, basically sees that he's dodging the question, and Jericho's like, yeah, what is going to stop you? Answer the question. MJF says that he's done everything for Jericho. He's got presence, friendship, great TV, and last week I gave you the best segment in the history of professional wrestling. What haven't I done? And Jericho says, well, you haven't beat me, but I'll give you a chance to. At Full Gear, MJF versus Chris Jericho. If MJF wins, then MJF will be let into the inner circle. And MJF says man to man that he will do anything, and he stresses that he will do anything to win. Ortiz cuts him off, though, comes in and says that he and Sammy don't like him. And next week, Sammy and Ortiz are going to take on MJF and Wardlow, and says you won't even make it to the pay-per-view. That was the end of the segment.
Yeah. So I thought this segment was fun and funny and long. It was just kind of long for me. I think that the build to this has been about 1 week too long. I think the very first week where they had MJF's announcement just to, build it up for a steak dinner was, I think maybe if we ixnayed that, I really liked the build for this. I just think it's gone on a little long. I thought this promo went on a little long, but was, again, entertaining for sure. I thought the Luchasaurus thing was actually kind of funny if you follow American politics a little bit, because sometimes if you watch these town halls, it feels like the participants who come to ask questions have kind of these softball questions. They kind of lob at the candidates, and then they say, well, actually, So I thought it was kind of funny that he gave him this question, and he had a pre-prepared graphic, like he was expecting that question. So I thought that was kind of funny. Peter Avalon not being able to join was hilarious. Reba fangirling over Jericho. So, there was a lot of positive, funny bits here. I really enjoyed that the crowd chanted Eric B, because they said that's how they introed him. They just said he was Eric B from Cody, Wyoming. And the crowd began to chant Eric B when he walked in. So I thought that was good too. I mean, overall, it's cool. It's funny. I hope they are leading to MJF joining the inner circle. I hope that's the decision that they make, and I think it would be the right one. I think it'd be a lot of fun teaming these two guys up. I also enjoyed that at the end they kind of continued with this weird, like, are they friends or are they hostile to one another, when it's like the point of the match is that they'll join forces if he wins, but then he's like, I'll do anything, and like he makes it real, like, violent. So it kind of continues this vibe of like, can't really tell if they like each other or not. And I think it's going in the direction that they do like each other. But obviously, like you said, the inner circle is not fully on board, at least not all of them. Overall, a funny, good segment, but I was just, by the end, I was like, okay, we're done. Like, let's move on. I have to say, though, the segment went way up, because I did not see that coming. I think maybe my wrestling spidey sense was not operating at full capacity, because I didn't realize that they were headed this direction of a match between the two. I probably should have realized that. But when Jericho said, you haven't beat me, I went, okay, like it all, that little light bulb moment went off. So I'm really glad that that's the direction they're going. I think it's going to be a really cool match with a lot on the line for MJF. I think it'll be one of these things where he's going to win. They're going to hug. And who knows what's going to happen, but I really hope that MJF joins the Inner Circle.
Yeah, that would make the most sense to start to cause some strife within the Inner Circle and have eventually some sort of either implosion or hostile takeover from MJF's side. And I think that's how we get the spin-off of babyface Jericho and possibly babyface Sammy as well with him. And possible babyface Wardlow as well. So we might get a spin-off of 3 babyfaces who are all heels right now. As well, because actually the babyface side of the ledger isn't actually, it's pretty even in AEW if I think about it. They have quite a lot of heels. It's pretty even on the babyface side. I don't think they have as many huge baby faces as they do heels, so it might make sense to pull a couple more guys towards that side, especially for some of the bigger guys where you have Cage and Lance Archer are 2 of like the biggest guys, and they're both heels, and pulling a Wardlow over to the babyface side could be interesting to have kind of a heavy on babyface side along with the club. So should be interesting.
Right. I was going to say, I think the tag division is pretty well divided right now, but I think that the singles area is a little more heel heavy. So I do agree that they should bring a few of those guys over, have Jericho wrestle some singles matches as a babyface. I think that'd be really good. Maybe, like you said, Sammy come with him. I also want to mention one thing. I don't know if you noticed this or not, but did you notice that Ortiz said that he and Sammy don't like MJF, but Santana's on the fence?
Right. Yep.
And Santana seems like and also it's not Ortiz and Santana taking them on, it's Ortiz and Sammy. And I don't know, not that saying that that's foreshadowing anything, but it did make me think that maybe if there is an implosion in the Inner Circle and we get a babyface and a heel, component that are going to civil war with each other, that we might see Proud and Powerful break up. That was just a little thought that popped in my brain.
That's a possibility too. I guess we'll see how that goes. Holy crap, they showed some footage from Dark. This is of Will Hobbs, and this is leading into Taz basically saying, people keep asking me why we're still interested in Will Hobbs, even though he's taken so long to answer us. And Taz says, he's big and mean and fits into our world. Cage says, so are you in or are you out? And they are still looking for an answer from Will Hobbs. So we will see what comes of that.
Yeah, really quick pin there. They showed footage of Dark, right, and they kept a storyline that they are obviously interested in having on Dynamite around by doing a video package. When I saw this, I was so glad, not because it was necessarily, incredible work. Everyone did a good job, but what it was a compilation of footage from Dark showing Will Hobbs in action, reminding you that he's around, them continuing the storyline, not in the match, which they do a great job of storytelling in the ring, but they were storytelling in a pre-recorded video package, took a minute of the show, just like we've talked about before, to remind you this is going on, give everyone a little bit more time, tell you, hey, we want Will Hobbs because XYZ, he's big, he's tall, he's mean, he, beats people down. We like that. We want him as a part of our group. So I was super happy just to see this and to see a little bit of footage. And I think that AEW's done a good job, because even just a few weeks ago, we talked about how it was match after match after match. And I think that this episode for me was a really good mix of both packages and in-ring action, promos, and it, continued the storylines, but they didn't have to be there live, outside or inside the ring. They could do some stuff up on the video package and show us what's going on Dark.
Yeah, big fan. And we had a little bit of footage from when the bunny came back when they were talking about her as well from Dark. So they actually showed us a little bit of the video as well as talking about. Hopefully they maintain that type of thing. I'd like to see, just on a weekly basis though, like a 2-minute actual video package of what happened on Dark, like a recap of Dark. Sometime maybe in the middle of the first hour or something, just to bring us all up to speed of what happened on at least the important notes of some of the top guys. So like, okay, I know I know SCU had a match over there. I know Best Friends had a match over there. Best Friends are up in the top of the rankings. They've been up there. It's like, okay, what's going on with them? I know Darby Allen had a match and he's going for the TNT Championship. Why wouldn't you cover and say like, hey, SCU show just, really 10 seconds of the match and say, yeah, SCU defeated blah, 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 with whatever, just to kind of keep these guys over and keep people in their thoughts, because we have so many guys, they can't show everybody on Dynamite, and they'll go, multiple weeks without having somebody on Dynamite. But if they were over on Dark, put them on a short video package covering what happened on Dark, so we still have these people in our mind and we don't completely forget about them.
I agree with you, and from our conversations before that I agree. But let me just put this out there. Do you think that they're afraid that if they do that too much, people are not going to watch Dark? I mean, because they need to keep those viewership up, right? Especially if they're interested in potentially going to a second show one day. So they want to say, hey, if people want more AEW, then they should be tuning into Dark. They do have a banner at the bottom of every show talking about that week's Dark results. So it'll say, hey, Darby Allen defeated Jobber or whoever. So they do put that, and they are starting to show a little bit more as it relates to relevant storylines. Do you think that they're afraid if they do a 2-minute results video package that people won't watch?
I don't think so, because it's already happened. So it's not like it's something that's going to happen. That's usually when people are going to skip stuff if they know what's going to happen later. But they never... Well, one thing they don't do is they don't say, hey, on Tuesday on Dark, these matches are going to happen. They don't say that on Dynamite. They never do. So it's not even like they're propping up Dark at all, when they should be saying, hey, go check out on Tuesday on the YouTube channel this match, and this match. They know what matches. They probably had already taped them before Dynamite even taped that day anyways. So it's like, why don't you at least give us a rundown of some of the matches that we would see if we tuned in on Dark on Tuesday? But they never remind us of that.
That's true. They should do more promotion.
Yeah. So I think if they did a 2-minute video package to cover, especially like I saw a clip, I still haven't gone back to see the match, but Brandon Cutler finally beat Peter Avalon to get his first victory, and he used a bag of dice and he did a suplex onto dice, which probably hurt like hell. That's like Lego. Have you ever seen the Lego spot? Somebody do Lego spot?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm sure that hurts, but they had like some D4s in there, the pyramids. So it probably did.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I saw the clip, but I haven't gone back. But I think if they put that on Dynamite, said, hey, and show some highlights of the match, be like, oh, that looks like a really cool match, I might go back and watch it. That type of deal. Next up, we had Orange Cassidy versus Cody in a lumberjack match for the TNT Championship. And wasn't this a lumberjack match to keep the Dark Order out of the match? Wasn't there their explanation last week?
That was a little unclear. I think the reason that they made it now, retroactively, I think the reason it was a lumberjack match is because the Dark Order had promised to interfere. So in order to try to make it even, they just brought everybody down there and hoped that they would be able to hold them back from interfering in the match too much. Obviously, once we get into it, you'll find out that most of the lumberjacks interfered at some point in this match. It was a little wonky. But yeah, I think they had just promised to interfere against Cody, so they just decided, let's just make everybody down there,
I guess. But yeah, I think this match was a little overbooked for given how many people were there. Right out of the gate when the bell rings, they both go for their finishers right away. Of course, neither of them hit. Orange Cassidy fakes putting his hands in his pocket and then starts off wrestling with Cody, doing some chain wrestling, bit of mat work. Uno grabs the boot of Cody early on when he's over in the corner. Cody gives Orange Cassidy a vertical face buster and does some push-ups, which Arn Anderson is pretty mad about. He yells at Cody, tells him to get serious. Orange Cassidy then hits a vertical suplex of his own. Cody rolls to the outside. Orange Cassidy follows. Cody runs back in. Best friends push, I think it was John Silver, away and give Orange Cassidy a hug. And then there's a spot where Orange Cassidy is up on the ring apron and Cody punches him, so he lets go of the rope and falls backwards in like a trust fall, but the best friends catch him and then prop him back up onto the apron. And then a minute later, the same exact spot happens with Cody. Cody falls back, the best friends catch him and then are looking at each other and then just let him drop to the floor. They let go of him, which then causes a little bit of a scuffle between Dustin, QT Marshall, and best friends. And then they Trent actually gets a punch in on Cody at one point when he is draped over the second rope. And then both guys fall to the outside into the opposite person's camp. So QT Marshall and Dustin have Orange Cassidy. Best friends have Cody. And they have to kind of negotiate on throwing both guys back in the ring without beating them up. Orange Cassidy sends Cody out of the ring on the Dark Order side. The Dark Order attacks. So Orange Cassidy actually goes out to fight them off. And then Cody rolls into the back into the ring, but Orange Cassidy is still brawling on the floor. And then they fight up to the top rope, and Cody superplexes Orange Cassidy into the mass of lumberjacks, and then back into the ring. Happens at about the 10-minute call here. Orange Cassidy then hits Slumdog Millionaire, a diving DDT, and Beach Break, and gets a very close 2 count. Orange Cassidy is setting up for the Orange Punch when John Silver runs in and hits Orange Cassidy with a pump kick, and he quickly like shows off his guns for a minute and rolls out. The ref was distracted at this point trying to quell the brawl that was going outside the ring, so he didn't see it. Neither did Cody. Cody is still kind of taken up by what the brawl is going on the outside. And then Arn Anderson also punches Orange Cassidy when he's rested on the ropes, and Cody did not see that either. Cody hits a crossroads and gets the win, and then the brawl just continues. And Darby Allen is showed watching from the stands, and that he is going to be taking on Cody for the TNT title at Full Gear.
Listen, I know you said it's overbooked, and you're right, it is. And if Cody has any one vice or sin that a lot of his segments commit on Dynamite, I would say overbooking is the one that, is probably most likely to happen, because I do enjoy almost everything that Cody's involved in. As kind of a classic fan, I really enjoy his little bit more old school take on a lot of his matches, but is prone to overbooking. And again, you're right, it is. I really love this. I thought it was a lot of fun. I love these little bits where, I think too often in wrestling, we get into these tropes where it's like, we're all heels, so we're buddies, right? Or we're all faces, so we're friends. This match really was like, sure, we're both good guys, but like, we've got our boy. You know what I mean? When Best Friends dropped Cody, and then I think it was Chucky T was like, how'd that happen? Like, oops. That was just such a funny face he made. And then again, a scuffle between QT Marshall, Dustin, and the Best Friends. Yeah, that's totally right. Their boys are fighting each other. Like, they're not going to be best pals. You know what I mean? So I actually thought that was really neat, that they kind of subverted the stereotypical, we're all faces, so we all get along. No, that doesn't happen every time. So I thought that was cool. The Arn Anderson punch to Orange Cassidy, that, like, I know Cody didn't see it, so in essence, you actually kind of protect him as a babyface. That, I know that Trent got a punch in earlier, but it still felt kind of heel to me, with Arn just, he clocked, like, he was already out. He'd gotten hit by the boot from Silver. He didn't need another punch, I don't think, and he wailed him right there in the corner, kind of stands up, and then Cody turns around, not having seen the sucker punch, hits him with the crossroads. So overall, I just thought that was a little extra salt in the wound from a heel perspective. This is totally unrelated in a sense, but I actually would love to see Cody, when he turns heel, bring Arn with him as a heel, maybe even team up with Tully again, have this big reunion, Arn and Tully, give him a hug or something. And they could be heels together. I'd like that. But in that moment, I just felt that was a little extra dash of spicy, a little bit of heel tactics there from Mr. Arn Anderson. So yeah, Cody gets the win. It's the right decision. It was overbooked, but it was fun. I liked it.
Next up, we have best friends are returning to their locker room, and they run into Miro and Kip Sabian, and they say, Kip Sabian apologizes about what happened, and it's just that Allen was a gift from Miro to him, and Penelope comes in with a present. She's dressed as Orange Cassidy, which was hilarious. She asks trick or treat. Trent says neither, and then Miro and Sabian attack. And in the present was actually the joystick panel from Allen. They beat up the best friends into a locker room. Miro just like tosses Trent into the wall, and Miro grabs him and says, "I will never forgive you." And then they leave them laying. Interesting.
Yes, as I'm sure we'll discuss here in a second, when they ran down the matches for next week, they have announced that Trent versus Miro is going to be happening, both accompanied obviously by their compatriots. I thought that this was actually like, I know I've been down on this storyline, and I still am, because I don't think that it really makes a lot of sense for them to be feuding over a video game named Allen. And also, I feel like Miro is kind of wasted here. That said, I really like them just trashing them. When he threw Trent up against that wall, like he got him high up on that wall. I was like, oh man, that was quite a throw there.
I was kind of hoping they had gimmicked the wall so he'd make a dent into the wall, but they didn't.
That would have been funny. No, I was expecting kind of something like that, maybe crashing through a table or something. But when he hit that wall, I was like, oh, that's just a standard wall. Like that probably hurt quite a bit. He just wailed him. So I'm actually kind of interested now in the match for next week. For sure, storylines, everything else aside, just for the guys in the match, I really like it. And it actually, hey, look at this. It makes sense. They have a beatdown. Miro throws Trent into a wall. Now they've got a match against one another next week. So even AEW at their cheesiest or at their worst, I think they still at least know, like, these are the steps to a story. We're going to have an incident, then there's going to be some promos, there's going to be a beatdown, it'll lead to two of the guys, and then eventually to a tag team match. Like, they at least follow what I think are logical steps to telling a story, unlike some of their other competitors. That's why I really appreciate what they're doing here, even if I think the story itself is a little silly. At least the structure's there.
Yeah, I don't think they've booked a match on a show from something that happened earlier in the show. Like, they've always had their card set by the end of the first match. We've never had like, oh, suddenly tonight's main event is going to be such and such because this happened. Like, we didn't have a main event booked already.
Right, and it's not like Miro and Trent have had 5 matches already.
Right.
And, this is their number 6. Like, who's going to win this one? They're not constantly fighting one another. They're, making logical progressions forward.
Next up, we have the NWA Women's Championship is on the line on AEW TV. It is Leyla Hirsch versus the champion Serena Deeb that we talked about earlier. Lots of mat wrestling. Hirsch, like, if her back is turned, I could have sworn that was Ronda Rousey. And her from the back, she looks exactly built like Ronda when she's not cutting weight for a UFC fight. But usually, like in WWE, she's slightly thicker when she's not cutting for a fight. But she's built exactly the same. She's short. Portion wise, she looks exactly the same. She hits a double knee in the corner and then a wrecking ball drop kick. That was pretty good. Deeb hits a hanging neck breaker. Hirsch starts to attack the arm a bit, takes control. We go through a commercial break. Out of the commercial break, we have Hirsch missing a moonsault, and that was pretty much the beginning of the end for her. Deeb hits a neck breaker and then submits Hirsch to retain the NWA Championship. I didn't write a lot, but it was just a solid back and forth match. During the commercial, Hirsch actually took a good amount of the offense, and I thought it was a solid match. They didn't try to do anything complicated. It was a solid match.
Right, 100%. This is kind of the direction that I've been hoping that AEW's women division would go. Funny that it's none of their more established women's division names. Obviously, Serena Deeb has been on recently, and Hirsch, I don't think she's been on Dynamite before. I didn't think so. So when I saw this, I was like, "Wow, this is a good women's match." They're doing a great job. And then I realized, hey, there is no Swole or Nyla Rose or like their established women's names. It makes me think, hey, maybe this is the direction you want to go and allow some of these women to provide some more training for. I feel bad hating on the women's division here, but it's just we haven't seen the kind of quality matches that I'd like to see. And lately, Thunder Rosa, Serena Deeb, Hirsch this week, I think that they're doing a great job. And I'm like, this is the direction that I'd love to see them go. Have some more established, women, not even just established names, but established with experience.
Yeah.
Show and guide some of the other women that they obviously are trying to make into stars. Have them guide them through a match, get some more time on dark, because if this is the direction, like I love it, absolutely. I also like that commentary played up the fact that the NWA World's Women's Championship belt still had Thunder Rosa's, I believe, her name and her face on it.
Yeah, still has her face in the middle of it.
How recent it was, just the day before. And they said that Serena Deeb had gotten on a plane, flew straight to Jacksonville with the belt on her shoulder, didn't even allow them time to change over the nameplates because she was so eager to defend on Dynamite. That's kind of small detail that when they include makes stuff feel important. I really, really liked that because at first I was like, "Oh, is that a little bit of a goof there? They messed up that." And no, it completely played into the story of the match and of Serena Deeb's championship win. So I'm all about that. I thought that was really cool. And again, I like the NWA AEW partnership there that they are fostering. I'm really glad about that.
Yeah, I love it how they played it up like that, even though Dynamite was taped last week. So this match was actually taped 6 days prior to her actually winning the championship.
That's true. Ooh, that is I like that. That's some like next level Doctor Strange stuff right there, messing with the timelines.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
So they knew that she was getting the NWA championship. So that's probably why they didn't even that's why they hadn't switched the plates over, because it was still Thunder Rosa's championship.
That's so cool. I love that. Wrestling makes me happy sometimes.
Next up, we have Alex Marvez. He's with Hikaru Shida. Alex says Nyla Rose has been at the top of the rankings in the women's division, but she wants Shida to challenge her. So Shida says, "You want me? You want me? I want you at Full Gear." And I'm not sure what gives Hikaru Shida the authority to make matches, but okay. Not much of a build for Shida and Nyla. 3? 2? 3?
I think it's 3. I think you're right. That sounds about right to me. Yeah, I mean, this was just whatever, kind of a throwaway segment, but they've made the match. They've confirmed it for Full Gear. I do like Shida, and again, I think we've talked about this before, but I really wish that they would give her a little more opportunity to show some more personality, because she's very entertaining. Like if you see her on BTE or you see her on her own, Instagram pages or anything, she's doing some funny stuff. I saw a video of her trying Reese's peanut butter cups for the first time.
That was
hilarious.
And
just like the emotion on her face was hilarious. Now that was probably a few months ago now, but it just made me laugh. She's never made me laugh like that on Dynamite. So I was wishing that they'd give her, and I think that her English is maybe still kind of coming along, but they could definitely do more. I don't know if you remember when, or if you were watching, when Shinsuke Nakamura came up to the main roster in WWE. His English was still improving as well, but they actually made him very entertaining, kind of funny. He almost pretended like he didn't want to learn English. He was just like, only gave promos in Japanese and was very aloof because he was a heel at the time. So that's the kind of thing I wish they would do with Shida, because she clearly has some charisma that transcends a language barrier. So allow her to do more. And instead she was just like, sure, it's a match.
Right. Do video packages, let her speak in Japanese, subtitle it, bam, you're done. I don't know why this is so hard. They screwed this up with Riho as well. And it's like, okay, even if she doesn't have great English, her English is fine when she's just like casual off the cuff.
It's not bad.
Yeah, it's not bad. But again, yeah, let her speak Japanese and subtitle it later. It's not a big deal. And yeah, she's really entertaining and really charming on social media and whatnot. So I don't know why. The peanut butter cup thing was pretty funny. Oh crap, I was going to say something. There was somebody else that you brought up in that. think you brought up somebody else's name in that.
Rosa, Serena Deeb.
No.
Big Swole. Nyla Rose.
Okay. But yeah, so they should definitely. But again, we're going back to Nyla Rose versus Shida. I have no idea which way they're going to go here. It could go either. But again, yeah, I don't know why she has the authority to make matches, but okay. That one just kind of throws me a little bit.
Yeah, I just think that they wanted a quick way to confirm the match for Full Gear.
And when was the last time Nyla wrestled on Dynamite?
Right. So they actually talked about that a little bit. They said that Nyla Rose has refused to wrestle until she gets her championship shot against Shida. Only thing is, she's the number 1 ranked contender, I believe. Yeah. So it's kind of like, right, you're getting that match. Like, why would you? But she's saying, she's not going to wrestle anybody else until that happens. It was like, I don't know if you remember, but there was a storyline they did in NXT a while back, and this reminded me of it. And this is a few years ago. I'm not sure if you watched much NXT back then. But when Samoa Joe was in NXT, he had this beef with William Regal, the commissioner of NXT. And he was wrecking house until he got like exactly what he wanted, because he was told he was not going to get a match. And I'm like, Nyla Rose is she's getting the match anyway, so why is she holding out and trying to act like it's this, gonna move heaven and earth to get her this match? Like, nope, she's highly ranked, she's gonna get it. That's how AEW works, rankings.
Right.
So,
and it was actually the comment on Nakamura about him not being able to speak. Have you heard his podcast with Chris Jericho?
No.
His English is fine.
That's funny. Was that a recent episode?
No, it was when he first came to. I think when he first barely came up to the main roster.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have not heard it,
because they had known each other for many years. Let's see. Next up, we have Shawn Spears versus VSK. I don't know what VSK stands for. I missed that part. Did you get it? Okay.
I don't know if they said, actually.
Okay. It was VSK. But whoever
VSK.
that is. Shawn Spears hits the C4 and it's over. That was the match.
I actually really like the C4. I feel like they don't put Shawn Spears on Dynamite enough, because I think that he could actually do some really cool stuff.
Yeah, the running Death Valley driver is a great move, and he calls it the C4.
It's great. Super cool. And also, as kind of a aside to what I said earlier, I'm really, really hoping that eventually the direction they go when they turn Cody heel, which should happen in the next year, when he turns heel, I really hope that it's him, Shawn Spears, and FTR, along with Tully and Arn. Yeah. I know that's a lot of people, but that is my hope and dream, is that him and Shawn Spears make up for the chair shot, and that they can, because Shawn Spears needs a bigger platform, and he needs to be a part of a top group, and I would love that.
Yeah, of course. I know he just backstage, he's there to help out the young talent as well. That's one of his main jobs is actually helping younger talent, because he's wrestled for such a long time, so helping with fundamentals and stuff like that.
Back when he was in WWE, actually, there was a report that when Seth Rollins was coming back from his knee injury, people were asking, hey, who do you trust, right? Who do you do your first practice matches back with? You got to be delicate, you got to be careful, right? And he immediately said Ty Dillinger, aka Shawn Spears. And at the time, they weren't really connected. Rollins is on the main roster. Dillinger was still on NXT. So people were like, really? And it kind of came as a surprise that people reported it, but you can see why. He's just got a lot of professionalism, a lot of, almost gracefulness. I've never seen him, with the exception of that chair shot, I've never seen him really botch anything, and I don't think that was his fault. So it was really good. Yeah, I love to see him squash this guy with one move.
While he's celebrating, somebody starts throwing candy at him from the front row, and we see a guy dressed up as a bull. So Shawn Spears goes out, pulls him over the barricade, throws him into the ring. He turns his back to go over to Tully to get the metal slug to put in his glove, and it is revealed to be Scorpio Sky, and Tully is like, turn around, and as soon as he does, Scorpio Sky picks him up, hits him with the TKO, and that is all she wrote. So this rivalry between the two of them continues on. It looks like it's now going to play out over on Dynamite to finish it off.
Yeah, another good way to show, hey, this is something we want to continue to give attention to. Here's 3 minutes. You know what I mean? I think that was actually really cool. Sort of let down at the end. I think it was Excalibur said, "When you mess with the bull, you get," and I groaned audibly, but it was fine for sure. And I like that they're continuing this. Scorpio and Shawn Spears should be cool.
They run down the card for Full Gear because we basically have the entire thing at this point. So
They ran down Full Gear and next week. I was like, by the end of this, I was like, what's going on?
So I'm gonna run this backwards because they did it from top to bottom. I'm gonna do it from bottom to top. So we have Orange Cassidy versus John Silver. That is going to be on the buy-in. Shawn Silver obviously interfered with the match with Cody tonight, so that match is made. We have MJF versus Chris Jericho for MJF's spot in the Inner Circle. We have Hardy versus Guevara, so Sammy and Matt are going to continue on it, but this is going to be an ultimate deletion match at the Hardy compound, so hopefully neither of them kill themselves. We have Cody versus Darby Allen for the TNT title. We have Shida versus Nyla Rose for the women's title. Bucks versus FTR for the tag championship. If Bucks lose, no more title shots for them. And Kingston versus Moxley in an I Quit match. So I'm looking forward to that being a lot of hardcore wrestling. I'm okay with that. Then
I love this card with one exception. I think that they've given a more build to the NWA Women's World's Championship than they have their own title in recent weeks. I would prefer to see that match either replaced or the addition of an NWA World's Women's Championship match. I would prefer to see Serena Deeb on this card. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you. They have this match is like, okay, there's no build up, and there was that quick mention from the commentary team. It's like, okay, doesn't Nyla Rose have a mouthpiece in Vicky Guerrero who lives like right in the area, and she could just drive over and cut a promo for her and drive home? You know, it's like, why does she have a mouthpiece if they don't even use the mouthpiece to cut a 30-second promo? And then they say next week it's going to be Chris Jericho is going to be on commentary. I'm curious who the odd man out is going to be. It's taped on a Wednesday. Nothing's happening on Wednesday, so that's kind of weird. MJF and Wardlow versus Ortiz and Sammy Guevara. Then we have Mierdo versus Trent. Then we have Shawn Spears versus Scorpio Sky. And then out of the brawl of the TNT Championship, we have Cody and the Gun Club versus Silver, Cabana, and Number 10. So I guess I forgot to mention, at the end of the Orange Cassidy Cody match, the brawl was going on, and actually the Gun Club took out a lot of the Dark Order guys to clear out the ring in the end. So that is why they are with them. So is this the first time Austin is going to be on Dynamite as a wrestler?
Yes, I believe so.
Because I know
he's primarily been on the sidelines there.
Yeah, he's been on Dark, and I believe he was in one of the Casino Battle Royales way early on. I think that was it. I don't think he's ever actually been on Dynamite as a competitor.
Austin was. Billy Gunn was, but Billy I don't think Austin was ever in one of those, was he?
He has been in.
Okay.
I think. I could be complete. I know I've seen him in the ring, but it could have been a Dark episode that I was watching.
Okay. I know Billy Gunn's been in a couple of those.
And then we have Moxley and Kingston are going to have a face-to-face in the ring going into their match at Full Gear. So that should be interesting. We'll see how that goes. Probably not your standard contract signing. Didn't sound like it was going to be a contract signing anyway.
No, it didn't. I'm, excited to see what it is as the go-home show, but actually a lot of the matches they made, I was kind of indifferent on. The only thing I'm really looking forward to, I would say, is probably Shawn Spears and Scorpio Sky. Otherwise, obviously I'll watch it and I'm sure they'll do a great job, but I'm really hoping that they go a little heavier with the video packages and promos leading into the pay-per-view, because some of the matches were like, okay, sure, we'll see what happens.
MJF and Wardlow versus Sammy Guevara and Ortiz with Jericho on commentary. That is going to be interesting because that has to do with the Inner Circle. With Jericho on commentary, I think is going to add a lot to that. Mierdo versus Trent should be a good match. I doubt it's going to be a squash, so we should have a good one there. Cody and the Gun Club versus Dark Order. I could take it or leave it on that one. but we will see. All right, next up we have the final match of the evening, and this is the final semifinal match. This is the last semifinal match of the number one contenders tournament, and it is Penta El Zero Mierdo versus Kenny Omega, and God, that name is way too long for Penta. But beforehand, they show a little bit of video of Eddie Kingston talking with Phoenix and being like, "Dude, you're hurt. You can't wrestle." And it's all about the family, and that's why Penta gets in there again. Don't know why Kingston or Phoenix can unilaterally sub in somebody into a tournament without management. Right. So curious how that happens. They should have said, he should have started off with, "I talked to Tony Khan and Penta's can be subbed in."
Right. Little headcanon, it was like, the match is on, but you need to agree. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of my thing. Like, they need Shida to agree to the match, kind of like a contract signing, for instance, or they needed Phoenix's approval to surrender his spot, in a sense.
Right. Whereas these, it was like just unilaterally done, and it was the request of the person who was talking, or with Nyla, it was Nyla's request, not management's request from Nyla.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. Anyways, did you notice that when Penta and Phoenix were coming out, Phoenix put his hand up for a high five and Penta just knocked his arm down? Like, I'm not doing that. He just slapped his arm away.
Totally noticed that. Thought that was interesting.
So I'm curious if this might actually, because there's a lot of how are we going to split the Lucha Bros up into kind of singles? Is this how they're going to... I thought this was probably going to be the way they go. They're going to turn Penta hard heel against Phoenix, and Phoenix is going to basically turn face and leave the family. That would kind of make the most sense, to spin him out and turn him babyface, because I mean his style is pure babyface. So it makes sense. And Penta is a super solid heel, anyways.
Oh, he's a great heel.
And really, if he cut promos in the middle of the ring and they didn't subtitle them, and you'd still get exactly what he means without even speaking Spanish.
100%.
The Kenny Omega, his ladies come out wearing lucha masks and dancing with brooms, which I thought that was pretty funny. He has his entrance where I love the kind of curtain pull away mechanism that they set up on the tunnel. That's kind of cool. He's backlit before he comes out. But again, there was a mile-long accolade list that Justin Roberts ran down for Kenny Omega. And didn't you say he had some friends in North Carolina this time?
Yes, so, he said he had a high school buddy who now resides in North Carolina.
Is there an inside joke that I'm missing here? Or is...
I think there is. I don't know what it is either.
Is that where...
made me laugh that he continually references North Carolina.
Is that where Hangman Page lives?
That's correct. Where he's billed out of.
So maybe that's why he keeps harping on North Carolina to get under Page's skin. They lock up hard, and then they disengage. Omega lifts up his shirt to show that he is wearing the AAA Mega Championship title, and he taunts the Lucha Bros with it. He actually beat Phoenix to get that title. He will actually be defending that title in December at Triple Mania. Is that what it's called? Yeah. If that show actually ends up happening, which is kind of still up. Phoenix is pissed. They give each other a few free chops. Penta and Omega do. Penta throws the glove like he normally does towards the ref, but Kenny ends up catching it, and he just slaps him with it, just like you would see in like the old movies where the rich guy takes off his glove and slaps his butler or something with it. That was great. Then Kenny attacks, and Penta comes back and hits a backstabber, hits a nice flip over dive to the outside. Penta is favoring his knee after the landing, Omega his shoulder. They fight on the outside. Penta starts kicking the leg. Penta clotheslines Omega over the barricade onto the concrete. They fight out there. Omega kicks this cooler into Penta's leg, then bounces his head off of it, and then gives him a DDT onto the cooler. I think that was all in commercial for the rest of the world.
That was.
Which was awesome. Omega hits a Rise of the Terminator. Penta kicks kicks Omega in the teeth when going back into the ring. And then Penta hits a Tree of Woe double stomp on Omega for 2. Omega hits a couple Snapdragon suplexes. Hits a V-trigger. Penta fights out of a one-winged angel and hits a kick, but Kenny comes back with another V-trigger to the back of the head with Penta kneeled over in the corner. They fight to the top rope. It looks like Kenny is going to suplex Penta off the top rope onto the stage, but Penta fights him off, and Kenny is standing on the stage, and Penta hits a Canadian destroyer, or a Mexican destroyer in this case, on the stage. And then back into the ring, Penta hits a package pile driver, but Omega kicks out at 2. Omega hits a jumping V-trigger. Penta fights out of another one-winged angel, and then Penta hits the arm breaker, and Omega ends up hitting a few left-handed strikes, gets super kicked in the face, but then Penta goes for a springboard strike of some sort, and Omega just hits him in the air with a V-trigger, puts him up for the one-winged angel, and gets the victory. So we are going to have Omega versus Hangman at Full Gear. So that is how we wrap up the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you think that they are moving to this too quickly, or do you think that this is the right call? In my opinion, it was a great, the tournament was a great device by which they set up this match. I think it was absolutely the right call. But I think that the result, even though, again, I think it's the right result, do you think that they've gone here too soon?
At this point, no. We're a year into this feud building. I think it was mid-November last year when Hangman started to kind of lose his smile, if you will, and that's kind of when this whole thing started. And the him leaving the Elite, I think, happened mid-November last year, and that's kind of when the whole thing kicked off. So, I mean, we're 1 year out. I think it makes sense. And I love that this vehicle as a chance encounter between the two of them instead of a grudge match between the two of them. So we still have that grudge match in the back pocket that we can build to later. This is just a vehicle to get us to this first match. I am guessing we're going to circle back to this program sometime late next summer. And I'm guessing Omega's going to have the championship at that point, and that is when Hangman's going to be building, and we're going to have a heel Kenny Omega and a babyface Hangman Page coming up, challenging for the title in sort of the grudge match comeback for this. I think that's where we're going with that.
Yep, I agree with that. I do think that's going to happen wherever the lineage of the championship ends up. I do think that we're headed toward champion heel Omega, babyface challenger Adam Page. 100% agree with you. Man, the Canadian or Mexican destroyer onto the ramp sounded sick. He just thud right onto that ramp. I thought that was pretty gnarly. I was hoping that they're all right.
I like how
that looked great.
I like how they do. Well, on the taped shows, they can bump up the crowd noise and put in those little sound effects to or boost the mic right at the impact so you can hear that. Because I remember there was one where Hardy was sent into a ring post on a tape show and it made like a little ting off the.
Yes, I do remember that. Yep, I do. I thought that this was a really good match. Again, as I mentioned at the very beginning of the show, I think that this was the best match on the card. It was my second favorite after the opening Wardlow and Hangman Adam Page match, but this was really good, and I really thought that Omega's V-triggers are looking good. I don't know if he puts a little extra spice on him when he's a heel, but man, when he hit Penta, I think with the very first one, when I think Penta was like kneeling about the middle of the ring and he just ran up and kneed him in the face. Oh man, That's really good. So I'm really excited for the direction they're headed with him. The entrance again totally worked for me. The whole list of accolades, the brooms, the music hitting again. Not too much of a slow intro. Just the music comes in full force, and he just like obviously just like soaking in his own accolades and his own brilliance. So I really like that. I like where they're headed with this, and I'm very excited to see the finals.
Yeah, this is the Kenny Omega that I want to see. I love him. He's really full of himself. Like, he's got a giant ego. And I love that he had the Mega Championship and was mocking the Lucha Bros with that as well. Like, just salt in the wound type of work. This is the Kenny Omega I've been waiting for, and this was a really good match. And he had, less than a day to put it together because Phoenix was injured the day before they filmed this one. So putting together a solid match in less than 24 hours. And, he's just a genius on how he puts these things together. Those V triggers look awesome. And, his V triggers usually always look good. These ones looked especially brutal. Especially in like the G1s that I've seen him in, those he always goes all out on those two. So very solid. So here is kind of tagging back on with some of the stuff we talked about with the Young Bucks, and now we have Kenny Omega here. Do we head towards, most likely at Full Gear, the Bucks are taking the tag titles, and then it would make sense for Kenny take the title off of Moxley at Revolution in February. We have a completely heel elite with all the gold. And I think that when we're talking about how do you balance being management and on screen and being legitimately at the top, not just because you put yourself there, but because you legitimately should be there. I think it works in their favor to be heels while also being management, because you can draw heat on two levels. If people hate you because you're on top because you're management, that's fine. And then if you're being a dick, you're actually being heels, then that works too. You get the same reaction for two different things.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's kind of similar to what I mentioned last week when we reviewed the Chris Jericho MJF's Les Dinner Debonair. In that, when I said not only are they smarmy heels and it's easy to hate them, but if you hate this segment and you think that musicals have no place on your wrestling show, then you still hate them. It's the same reaction, and you either are giving them kayfabe heat or you're giving them legit heat because you hate what they're doing. So either way, they're getting their point across. I think it's the same as here. Whether you dislike the fact that they are management and are on top, or you just dislike them for heels, either way, they're going to get the heat. And I think it's the right call. So I do feel that should be the direction they head. I feel like they should, second Omega when it comes to Revolution. They should be in his corner, maybe even help him cheat to win. And the Elite with all the gold is the final shot of Revolution. That's what I'm hoping for.
I wouldn't even be surprised if the Bucks seconded Kenny at this match coming up at Full Gear against Omega, or if they're at least at ringside for
against
it.
Page, right?
Yeah. So I think that could be interesting if they second him starting on this show coming up.
I like that a lot, actually.
Because we still don't know what the relationship between Kenny and the Bucks are. We just had that kind of little strife at the end of All Out when he just kind of walked out and left them. But we have not seen them interact since then. We know Kenny's feeling on Hangman. They're definitely not friends at this point. Kenny basically has no respect for Hangman at this point, even though it's been subtle, and I think they need to, at Full Gear, need to crank that knob and rip it off. And we will see what happens there when he does something really dastardly to win the match at Full Gear, I think.
Totally agree.
So yeah, I thought this was an above average show for AEW. 3 really solid matches, and even the women's match was good. We had that quick squash with Shawn Spears, which which was fine. The Lumberjack match was a little bit overbooked for my taste, but it was still fun. And then we had all the segments. We had tons of promos. We had the Inner Circle Town Hall, which was fine. Did go a little long, so that's kind of the slowdown point in the middle of the show. But other than that, I thought this was a solid show. Next week doesn't look as strong, but we might have something pop up that could be really good out of this. Jericho on commentary, Wardlow and MJF versus Ortiz and Guevara. I think that's going to be the sleeper for next week. That match might, coupled with Jericho's commentary, I think we might have a kind of a goal, a diamond in the rough in this one.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think next week's show looks a little weaker, but I think that they're going to really make up for it with some good promos and some good lead-in to the pay-per-view. So I'm very, very excited to see what happens. And truly, I'm anticipating it, I would say. Like, I have not felt this way in a while, where I'm actually like, I can't wait for this pay-per-view to see what kind of things develop. I really appreciate the fact that AEW's got 4 pay-per-views a year. That just makes this for me. Because, you know, it really means that when it comes around, it's going to be eventful and there's something to look forward to.
Just quick on the ratings here. AEW was up about 20,000 viewers, but actually it was beat out by NXT by almost 100,000 viewers because they had their Halloween Havoc show. Overall total audience with both shows going head to head, it's the highest total audience since February. So that is an interesting one. Total was 1.65 million viewers, which is like Raw's number. Pretty good, pulling in quite a big audience between the two of them. So Wednesday night is is wrestling night for a lot of people. So good there. Of course, AEW still kind of killed them in the key demos, up a little bit from last week as well. NXT, of course, was up like 33% in the key demos, but still was short. But pretty good overall. So AEW was 781 this week, and then the other thing, Rosa, we already talked about. So we are planning on doing the Full Gear post show on Sunday after the show. So on at 7 p.m. I think 7 p.m. Eastern is what we decided. We're gonna have Dave Colarusso. He'll be joining us like he has every time for the post pay-per-view shows, going back since I think I started doing the post pay-per-view shows. I think I've had him on for every one. So he's kind of like the post pay-per-view roundtable guy who comes in. So we're going to add him to the show. So it should be a good one. But we still have one more Dynamite next week, so we'll be back here next Thursday as well at 7 p.m. Eastern over here on the YouTube channel if you want to come check us out live. Also, we have starting on next Saturday, so in 10 days from now or 9 days from now, is also New Japan Power Struggle. So I'll have to get with Trey to figure out when we're going to do that. So that's probably going to be probably Tuesday, because I'm guessing the English commentary won't be up until Sunday, maybe Monday. So probably Tuesday for that one. So, and then we go into the Best of the Super Juniors / World Tag League with New Japan, something like 18 shows in the course of 30 days. So we're back into almost like a G1 territory where we pounded out. I think 2 weeks ago I did 5 podcasts in the course of 5 days. So that was fun. So lots of New Japan coming up. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you are listening to this podcast, get over to the YouTube channel. Link is in the show notes. We do this show live. If you have any comments, questions, feedback, you can send those to Eric at that'swrestling.com. You can also find us on Twitter at that'swrestling1 with the number 1 at the end. Caleb is going to start to work his magic over there, I hope, because I am just horrible at it. Also, we have a Discord server you can come hang out with. Leave us a review on your app of choice. iTunes would be great because that helps out in the search results. And I think that's it. Caleb, you got anything?
No, sir.
All right, so for Caleb Johnson, my name is Eric LaRoche, and you've been watching and listening to That's Wrestling. See you later, guys.